I believe now it's our turn, so let's get started. So hope you had a chance to participate and attend very interesting session before, and I hope the presentation that we'll give you today will not get you bored, and you will find the information that we are providing very informative and interesting. So today, together with my colleague Łukasz from my team, we would like to talk about the good DevOps practices at scale and what we have done in the context of implementing certain, let's say, capabilities connected to not only DevOps as such, but also cloud. So that would be the main, let's say, topic of the discussion. But of course, before we're gonna go there, I need to introduce myself, and then Łukasz will do the same, and of course, later on, we're gonna go through the agenda and the topic of the discussion that we would like to share with you. So, in general, my name is Piotr Musiał. I'm representing Philip Morris International. I joined PMI, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014, and since then I have been playing various roles in the IT department. I was in charge of the technical services connected to SharePoint. That was, let's say, the beginning of my career. And then in 2016, I moved to Switzerland, where I was supporting our scientists and, let's say, labs where we kind of produce the science. So that was really amazing time. Anyway, our company is offering such kind of possibilities for people to move to different countries. So I encourage you to join us. I joined the team there, and I was supporting those, let's say, scientists, and then after 2 years, because at that time PMI was preparing for the, let's say, process of getting the approval from the FDA organization, because we are at the end commercializing our products in the US, so that was our obligation. And my mission was to really prepare us as an organization to get those certificates. At the end, we got it, so I think it was a successful journey. But don't want to bother you with that. In 2018, I moved to Cracow, and since then I'm playing the role of the DevOps manager. I'm responsible not only for, let's say, building the toolset, but also, let's say, defining the practices that we promote across the organization to different people within PMI. So that's all on my side. Let me hand over my voice to Łukasz.
Thank you, Piotr. Hello, everyone. So my name is Łukasz Oz. I'm engineering lead in Philip Morris International, working in DevOps area. I joined the company in 2016, and I had the opportunity to work already for various teams, starting in 2016 work in PMO, Project Management Office, in the team supporting methods and tools for project managers. Then in 2018, I moved to DevOps team when we were building the tool set for CI/CD, for artifact storage, some global processes. Later on, our company decided to massively move applications to the public cloud, and I joined the cloud migration team as a migration engineer. Then in February this year, I joined back DevOps team as engineering lead, right now focusing on the good practices, templates, trying to propagate every reusable blocks of code, of modules, of infrastructure modules, CI/CD pipelines in our organization. Thank you.
All right, so let's go quickly through the agenda. It's pretty packed, so basically, of course, I will start with the quick introduction of PMI, because you have to also understand what we are doing as a company to kind of get the context. Then Łukasz walk you through the, let's say, challenges that we, let's say, spotted when we were starting building certain DevOps capabilities. So that is also, I believe, very interesting part of the presentation. Then I will also talk about the evolution, what we believe would be our North Star, because, you know, we are not there yet. We are kind of starting and taking over what we thought it would make sense. I will also share with you some lessons learned so far, because nothing is perfect, and, you know, you will always have some challenges while you are implementing certain things for your organization. So that is also important element. And of course, the session itself will be concluded by the Q&A, so in case of any questions, please raise your hand, and then you will have a chance to ask a question. But following the Q&A, you will also have a chance to see a short demo, because we don't want to, like, you know, get bored you with the slides, but we want to also really show you what we are doing as a team and how we are promoting those standards. So stay tuned. In a few seconds, you will hear and see some more details on this. When it comes to PMI, because as I said, I cannot forget about my company, because that's what we are. I mean, that's where we are working, and this is what we are doing up there in the context of DevOps. So basically, Philip Morris International is one of the largest tobacco company in the world. I believe it's the largest one those days, and basically right now we are going through the biggest transformation within the history of the company. So we are transforming our customers from the conventional products that we are selling so far to the let's say market into the risk-reduced products. So all of this, what I just said, is kind of connected to the huge technology movement. So of course, and when you talk about the technology, you cannot simply forget about IT, because at the end we are playing the crucial role to kind of define those standards and help our organization to really, you know, be up to speed with certain things that we are doing for our customers. So if you look at, let's say, the IT in Cracow, because at the end we are based up here, just here in our, let's say, search service center, we have more than 300 people that are, let's say, focusing on let's say, different aspects of the IT business, like artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, and also I'm part of the platform software engineering team, so we are also building certain DevOps capabilities for the organization. So this is, let's say, the core of the team up here. But we do have also some other departments like finance, HR, legal, you name it. So basically, we have, if I'm not mistaken, more than 2,000 employees in Cracow, so quite a big organization. So, and we are also a diverse company, so that's also something that we are proud of. We have more than 20 different nationalities here in Cracow, and what is also important and what we are really promoting is around, let's say, positions that are being held by the women. It's more than 33% here in just IT. So this is also something that we promote. Maybe let's go further. This is kind of teaser to what you're gonna see in the let's say couple of seconds or couple of minutes. But in general, when we started thinking of, let's say, moving our services to the cloud, of course all of this was kind of driven by the transformation that we are going through. You know, all the movement that we are doing is requiring, let's say, to be very efficient and, let's say, have robust, for example, infrastructure, and have a possibility to build solutions that will be, let's say, available for our customers in like, you know, weeks or even sometimes days. So this cannot be achieved without cloud. So when we started thinking of the cloud, like, you know, long time ago, we were just slowly exploring different capabilities up there. But, you know, that was really, let's say, little scale comparing to what we are doing right now, because right now we decided to simply close our data center, and whatever we have in our, let's say, landscape, we are moving to the cloud. So more than 600 applications. So that's the reason why Łukasz was also saying that before he was, let's say, looking after this migration process. It's still ongoing, so that is not yet, let's say, achieved. But basically, that was also, let's say, the trigger to start thinking of, let's say, putting some standards when it comes to the DevOps, when it comes to the software as such. So we were trying to be really efficient. I mean, if you look at our business, there is no place for failure. Our business is expecting from us to be really efficient and robust, and I mean in the context of providing, for example, infrastructure. Yeah. So that is very important aspect of the, let's say, of what we are doing in PMI. So of course, this is also somehow also connected to the way how we provision infrastructure, not only infrastructure, but also, like, you know, modules through the serverless approach. So all of this is something that we do at PMI. So maybe let's move move further. If you look at this journey, because you have to also get a bit of context what we started building, let's say, in 2018. So at that time I was, I think, still in Neuchâtel in Switzerland. Everybody was kind of trying to understand what we can do in the context of building certain capabilities, building like provisioning, let's say, infrastructure through the code. So all of this, everybody was kind of exploring. But if you look at, let's say, the large scale, because at the end we are a big corporation, more than 70,000 people across the globe, you can imagine that we have many people and many teams located everywhere. We do have like teams in Jakarta, we have, teams quite recently, we also opened the software hub in Portugal. So we have also presence up there, and we have also like people in Buenos Aires, so we are covering 24/7 support. But if you look at the number of teams that are being involved and you look at the scale, it's simply waste, because everybody is trying to build infrastructure by themselves, everybody is trying to promote different tool set to the organization, and this is not very efficient. Because from a team perspective, as I said, is perfect, because you have freedom, you can do whatever you want. But then when you look at the figures, because at the end management is also very much focused on our side on the figures and also some cost savings. So when they look at the big picture, they realize that globally we were wasting a lot of energy and time and money. So that was, let's say, the trigger to start thinking of optimizing certain capabilities. And then in 2018, I started setting up, let's say, this team. And we started providing DevOps tools to the big organizations. So instead of having distributed teams across the globe, we were trying to understand what we can do in order to centralize the service. Of course, it wasn't, let's say, easy journey, because if you give the toys to somebody, then it's not really easy to say, okay, now the toys are on our side, do your job and forget about what you have doing before. So it was not easy, but finally we were able to achieve something tangible up there. But that was the first step. Then we realized that tools are one element of the game, because tools without good practices simply do not exist. And you have to kind of have them in place so that people would be able to really manage the software in a smooth way without any problems. So we started putting in place some change management process. At the end, this is also very much tightly connected to even right now when it comes to the change management, branching strategy, the way how you manage the cost across the organization, and the way how you, let's say, promote standards, including the deployment strategy across all teams that you're in charge of. So we started putting that in place, but then in 2019 our management simply decided, okay, let's close this data center, because we want to first of all follow the market, and we want to be much more efficient when it comes to the, let's say, delivery of the software that PMI is building for our customers. So we said, okay, the approach that I took in 2018 wasn't really efficient, because that was, of course, we started centralizing those services, but if you look at, let's say, those aggressive targets that we got from the management, that they said, you have 2 years, we are going to close this data center and do whatever you want in order to migrate everything. So we said, okay, we started thinking of what we can do in order to revise the approach towards managing those applications. So we automate everything in the sense of whenever somebody was having a need to deploy application, they were going to our portal, they were clicking a few things, and then within a few seconds, those people were getting a set of the tools that are required to build the software. I can name it like Jenkins, I can name it Atlassian Suite, Artifactory, and many others. So all of this was delivered in few shots, in few seconds. Really, that was something that we were able to achieve, and I think we are still kind of successful in this journey. But of course, because this is kind of what we put in place in 2019, it was at the end also connected to what we have done before, but in the maybe different way, because as I said, we automated everything. And then on top of that, we started also, okay, we said, we did those practices before, so let's also start applying them in the larger scale, because as I said, we were trying to achieve what we were doing before in the smaller scale. Now we were kind of forced to start pushing things in the larger scale. So that was, let's say, our goal, and of course, that's the reason why we are also here, because I'm part of this team together with Łukasz that is setting up those standards connected to the software development practices. So maybe let's move on. What does it mean for us, good DevOps practices? Because this is also an important part of this presentation. for us, DevOps is very much connected to the automation. We are trying to automate as much as possible the activities that we call it repetitive activities. Yeah, whenever somebody is having a need to, I don't know, deploy certain Terraform modules, and we know that those modules will be reusable somewhere else. Of course, we are pushing those modules to the shared libraries, and those shared libraries are available to everybody. So that's something that we consider as a, let's say, important element of the automation. But of course, this is not only that, because we also think of like code style. So all of this is something that our software developers are defining for the organization. So this is also important. And of course, when it comes to the, let's say, automation, we are also thinking of and building certain frameworks connected to the process of deploying the applications. So we have some CI/CD standards and templates that are available for the users, so they can leverage them, what we put in place. But of course, even if you have everything, all of this that I was just highlighting, what is important is also around the testing standards. You might have like infrastructure that you can scale up in a few seconds to the size that is, let's say, needed at a certain point in time. But then, at the end, you have to also have an application that is fully up and running. Yeah. So we started also putting in place some, let's say, standards connected to the testing as such. And we are also building testing, automation testing for the platform. So we do have also some engineers on my team that are trying to help others and build those, let's say, automated tests for them. And then, of course, we are handing over those tests to the platforms that are handling the application as such. So this is very important. So of course, I can give you some example. We were doing some testing automation for one of the factory system in Cracow, and basically we reduced the time which was needed for, let's say, releasing the new version from 3 months to 2 weeks. So that was, let's say, our achievement, and this is also something that we push towards the teams and making sure that they are also applying those standards and practices within, let's say, their landscape that they manage and they are in charge of. So maybe now I will hand over my voice to Łukasz, who will give you more insights in the context of building those reusable blocks and the way how we are, let's say, managing those and also evolution of the teams, considering the scale that we are having on our side. So wait for Łukasz.
Thank you, Piotr. So before we move on to the next slide, I just want to mention, maybe it's unfortunate message for somebody. The most technical part of this presentation probably is done already. Sorry for that. Because today we're rather focusing on a process, we're rather focusing on the adoption of the good practices, how we are dealing with that in the company, and what problems we have, what challenges we need to solve. Then the title is Enlarging Challenge of Good Practices Adoption, right? And when I created this slide, I asked myself 2 questions. First, why we even call it a challenge, like good practices adoption. Good practices are good, so it should be straightforward. Then why this challenge is enlarging. So this hopefully will be explained in the couple of next slides with the scale, but stop at the first one and try to answer that. So challenge. You know that software development teams are mainly focused to develop the software, right? They want to go fast to the market, they want to satisfy the business and do it in the most efficient way, right? If you ask them to establish all of the processes and buy some licenses for tools, establish some processes around that and automate something, they might not necessarily be interested, especially in the beginning, right? When they are starting, they want to provide some MVP in a fast way, and they don't really want to spend time which they think it's very valuable at the beginning. Why the challenge is enlarging, maybe going away from IT topics, it will be probably good comparison to say, like, you would like to choose some vacation destination just for yourself, right? So if you like Spain, you go to Spain and so on. Try doing the same for you and 20 best friends of yours. So if you do it within 1 day without all discussions, unnecessary topics, I mean, I will be really impressed, and good luck if you try to do something like that. Okay, let's start from a small scale. We will do some walkthrough. So there will be small, medium, and big scale. For the small scale, I've chosen this pizza-sized team, so 6 up to 9 people, right, capable to do all the development activities to deliver the product. This term is very well known for Scrum people, for people working in Agile delivery mode, right? So we don't want to build one-man army teams, or on the other side, we don't want to build entire departments working for a single product. What you can see around it are those practices mentioned before by Piotr, and all of these practices at some point of time, even if it's not the main objective of the team, needs to be set up in some way, and they would like to do it probably to avoid technical debt, right? So in the upcoming sprints, the team is establishing velocity, right? They are also started discussing, for example, change management process that they will have. They will start describing how do they configure the repository or the CI/CD toolset, which tool they are using for the infrastructure provisioning, or which software as a service licenses they buy to support the development, right? This seems to be pretty straightforward, and in fact it is, but let's see if there are any challenges already at this stage, right? So probably one of the challenges is that they build, and this team maintains all of the solutions, all of these bullet points around them. It might be a bit overwhelming at some point of time. It might be a big responsibility as well. So it's worth considering that this is additional extra work. You should also take it into consideration, not only focusing plainly on the mandates that you need to spend to deliver some software. Then it's a bit more emotional factor. So as I mentioned, people want to focus on building the solution quickly, going to the market, right? Satisfying business, rather than investing upfront, making huge investments into good practices. So this will feel a bit counterproductive, maybe ineffective. They will feel like they are wasting their time, right? Actually, it's not true, because obviously, as we know probably from own experience, there is something called technical debt. There are some challenges that they might slow down the development later on. So this investment might be really worth considering. And one pragmatic reason is about the overwhelming tasks with the tools maintenance. So they need to think about all of the tools that are around their development. So CI/CD, task management, processes. In general, if they have even a single or few licenses for software as a service, they still need to maintain some access model. They need to, okay, thank you. They need to consider that this is additional effort, right? And if somebody else wants to use it, what happens then? Then I believe we are moving to the medium scale. So we have actually very similar situation, but a few more teams, right? And of course, everywhere you see this pizza size, because I like pizza, but also because we want to picture a bit the department of IT, right? And again, perfect world doesn't exist, and there are teams which are of the size of department. There are one-man army teams. We are aware of that, but this is again only an example. Those arrows between the teams, we can represent them with a single word, which is dependency. So as you may imagine, if you want to use something that is delivered by different team, or if you are asked to, because somebody will have an idea to reduce the time for delivery by reusing the source code, by reusing the pipelines instead of writing the same all the time, you will have the dependencies, right? What are the challenges connected to this medium scale? So probably we need to multiply the small scale problems, because there are very similar teams, right? So if they are pushing their own developers to deliver some solutions, and at the same time delivering some processes, everybody will try to pull to their side, right? And to use their own process. Then you may have duplicated tool installations, and if you are a single company, it's very uncomfortable to have the situation like multiple Jira instances, right? Or multiple Jenkins instances, because it will be simply pretty unmanageable, If somebody asks you about the cost of total software as a service money the cost of total software as a service that you have, you will not be able to answer that, right? Not talking about governance, access models, and many things related to that. Just to emphasize alarming dependencies, so these alarming dependencies is something that can really slow down the development if people are not thinking consistently, like Scrum Masters or product owners are not aligning in terms of dependencies between the teams. There are some breaking changes. It might slow down you later. And also, last but not least, it's about the responsibility for the toolset, for the practices, and also accountability for that. Meaning, if you have a team A delivering backend solutions, and at the same time, because it was like that a few years ago, they created source code repository, right? They are now seen as responsible for that, and other teams are starting to ask how to get access to, who is managing that, and even creating tickets. So again, you have more extra work, but in less controlled manner. Now, going to the big scale, the biggest we have here. As Piotr mentioned, our organization side, it might be comparable to that, right? So we have multiple teams all around the world doing very different part of IT, working in different time zones, in different tool sets, and sometimes standards. What are those arrows between all of these teams, departments, then also dependencies, but with some fire, with some warnings, alerts. So it's becoming just more and more overwhelming, right? And it's becoming harder to manage. It's seen in a bigger scale by more important people, let's say, and it's becoming less comfortable to manage that way. But let's try to sum up the challenges that they have. So probably we multiply medium scale problems now, right? And in addition to that, you have toolset independence problem because maybe somebody chose another cloud provider. Maybe they are managing it poorly or they are not doing infrastructure as a code. And you want to do it in entire organization, right? So this will be very difficult to migrate. Especially, I think, like speaking technically, if you want to migrate from one infrastructure as a code solution to another, if you are not dedicating if you have no dedicated people to do that, if you have no dedicated project and you are doing it ad hoc, I would not recommend to do that, honestly. The same applies to every tool set, right? CI/CD, different instances. Even if it's the same tool, it takes a lot of effort to consolidate that. And based on our example, correct me if I'm wrong, Piotr, but at one point of time we had around 10 Jira instances in the company, in a single company. And we almost had a project to consolidate that, right? So it was successful at the end. We are still having some exceptions from that, but obviously trying to manage everything in a single tool and manage it properly. About the change management, this is mentioned very, very often by us. This process, it takes special place in our hearts. It's because we believe simply as a team that this process is fundamental for delivery of the applications, right? And if you do it in the consolidated manner, it's not only the factor that you will pass audit in the same way and all around the world. It's also because you can easily manage the people to move between the projects, to maybe help others, and also it's because the releases might be aligned pretty easily. Then about infrastructure provisioning, I mentioned that already, about cloud providers, about this centralized cost management. This is also very useful, right? And also for some cloud providers, it's a good way to manage. And now some hope here. So solution, but as you may notice, it's a solution with question mark. Why the question mark? This is simple because we are not there yet. We are working on that. We have our North Star to follow. We would like to have some consolidated knowledge base, some high-level global requirements that people can follow. And also, what we noticed pretty early is to work in a community mode. So what you want to do, you don't want to establish processes and frameworks or tools for all the aspects of IT. For example, me or Piotr, we don't know front-end development at all, right? We can have some specialists on board that we can have these people dedicated to deliver these templates. But why don't we go into the markets or into the teams writing the real code in production, ask them to provide some examples, and also ask them to help us to spend some effort together and make it reusable for others. Then, before we get there to the solution, I think Piotr will be able to tell you more about the evolution of that and what is our way currently. Thank you.
Thanks, Łukasz. So, regarding the evolution of what we have put in place so far, so we started, let's say, thinking of those reusable blocks. I'm here talking about even, I don't know, Jenkins templates. We were building them by themselves. And we were hoping that people will be using them. Unfortunately, that was not the case, because you know, you cannot force people to do certain things, saying that this is the best way of, let's say, managing, I don't know, templates, whatever, modules, you name it. And we realized that that's not the way how we want to, let's say, manage those standards. So we just started interacting with those people. We started having like a community with those people and trying to understand what are the needs on their side. And basically, they are like a contributors to what we build for them. So at the end, of course, we do have some capabilities on our side to build software, to build, let's say, modules. But at the end, we are kind of governing them and making sure that whatever software developers are needing for the, let's say, product, they can push to us through, like, you know, simple pull request mechanism, so they don't have to, like, you know, go and do it by themselves, but they can go simply clone the repo and then create pull requests, and then automatically, once we approve, because at the end we are the ones that are kind of governing those standards, then they will be visible for others. And this is also kind of encouraging for them to really promote those standards through, let's say, products that they develop and they build for the customer. So this is one way of, let's say, engaging. If you're gonna apply this mechanism of pushing, that will not work. You have to have like a common agreement with the software developers, so that, you know, not only you will be pushing things, but rather you will have really like a good relationship and working on the same goal. So at the end, if you look at also our organization, we introduce chapters. I think this is coming from Spotify. I think Spotify at the end wasn't successful there, but at least in our, let's say, platform, we are trying to dedicate 20% of our time to the, let's say, activities that we just shared with Łukasz. So each and every, let's say, individual member of the team, of the software team, has to develop certain things for us, has to deploy and push and propose certain solution for us. And they are, of course, at the end, you know, when we have those yearly performance review, they have to also prove that they collaborate with us. So it's not like a one way of working with the team, but we really work as a one organization and trying to contribute to whatever we build all together. When it comes to the standards, tools, framework, languages, I don't want to get you bored with, let's say, those buzzwords, but we are also trying to measure efficiency of the developers. So, you know, of course, they can tell you all the beautiful buzzwords that, you know, they are able to, I don't know, build the infrastructure with a few seconds. Fair enough, but, you know, at the end, what matters is the value for the customer. So we started putting in place also the DORA metrics. I don't know how much we are familiar with them, but we are able to, based on, let's say, even those templates and standards that we are providing to them in the context of even CI/CD, you know, we are able to measure how often they release, or, for example, which release is causing some problems on their side, and then based on that they can also take some lessons learned and further steps to improve the situation. So this is important element, so that we don't work in the way that we are one team and we say that we know everything about DevOps. This is not true, I have to say. So that's important element. You have to really work with people, and I think this is also a part of this DevOps culture. If you don't collaborate with the people, this concept will simply collapse. Yeah. When it comes to the lessons learned, I think that was also repeated several times, but in general, whatever we are doing is to reduce the, let's say, total cost of ownership on the platform side, remove, let's say, the duplicates, duplicated architecture decision. There are also something like that on the slide, but at the end, we are trying to make sure that the developers that are building the software, they are really focusing on those tasks, not like, trying to reinvent the wheel and build something that they believe they will just use once, or maybe they will just build for somebody and then they will simply forget. So this is very important that, at the end, what we are trying to do is that, we want to really promote this DevOps culture through this, let's say, community model, because, we used to have, for example, some libraries that were available for people, but of course, due to some corporate rules, those libraries were restricted by the access. And of course, people were like keen, okay, we would like to use this or that. But when they were going there, there was like, approval process of just getting the access to certain things. That's not also the way of collaborating. You have to really talk to your security guys. Of course, they will be against, because they will say, no, you cannot publish this or that to the broader community, because there might be like data leakage, whatever. This is, let's say, not true, and you have to simply build the open model and community model with everybody, so everybody would be able to contribute. And even we are thinking of what Adidas did. Not sure whether you have seen, but Adidas is opening their standards to everybody on the market, not even like within the company, but even you as a developer can contribute to their code. And this is also the objective for us. This is also like a part of our North Star approach to open even the platform to everybody, so everybody would be able to contribute and promote those standards. At the end, you are building, I'm not saying that you are building trash bin, because that might be also, let's say, something that people might believe that everybody will be pushing. As long as you govern this in the way that, you have this process of getting the approval of the pull request, or you have process of really promoting that among the community, I think you will be successful. So I think, conscious on time, we have to move to the demo, and then of course you will have a chance to ask questions.
Yes, so before we move on, maybe because the time is limited, we will not show you live demo also because it's not my laptop, but we have a backup, so it's a good practice as well, right? Just to mention before we go there that there is a point on this slide, maybe you don't see it properly, but it's in total it's to just balance the restrictions and recommendations, right? We don't want to enforce people or force people to do some certain things when we really well know that restrictions are possible to be omitted, to be bypassed somehow, right? So we rather want to encourage people and work in community model. Then in our demo slides, so our backup, but it will show you the same as I would like to. We mentioned a lot about the community model. The good hint is to have contribution guide. So if you tell people how to contribute, if you tell them for each and every tool exactly being very specific that this is the bare minimum access you need to get, this is how to create the pull request, this is who is approving that, and by the way, it's which template for documentation you need to use, where to publish it. It will be way simpler for users to do it, and believe me, it's a trivial thing, but people appreciate such messages when they are asking you on the Microsoft Teams how to publish something, and you are sending them ready contribution guide, which is answering all the questions, right? Then, so following our knowledge base, which we want to build, some examples of that are visible on the screen now. So we have, for example, multiple templates and shared libraries for Jenkins written by our internal resources developers in the team, but also shared with some backend engineers, for example, because they wrote some additional, or security engineers because they integrated the secrets management toolset with Jenkins some time ago, so they shared it with us, right? We adjusted the templates because they were used by some particular project, so they could be treated as reusable. Then infrastructure as a code, so we have also a couple of modules, right, for Terraform. We are using it as main infrastructure as a code solution, and we simply don't want people to rebuild the same code all the time. So we don't want people using two EC2 instances, one RDS, and some simple email service to write all the time new resources, the same modules, but by different teams, right? We want to communicate clearly. And what Piotr mentioned here, it's very important to provide communication to people, also a trivial thing, but very important. Be regular in that, just provide people way to give you a feedback and ask for that so that they are aware, they even start expecting that some update will come from you, right? Another demo slide here is about our Docker artifacts, so images that we have, just an example, right? For CI/CD pipelines, we are using some pod templates for Kubernetes plugin. People are very often writing their own images, which are just taking some additional storage, but in fact they are doing exactly the same what was written a few times by other teams. So we are finally publishing that and sharing that to save some time. Now, source code management, and as I mentioned, this is this balance, right? We don't want to put too many restrictions, but we put bare minimum. So first of all, we want to make sure that people are using pull request mechanism, that they are not pushing directly to the master or main branch, any connected to the real environment, that they are not rewriting the history of that, and they are not deleting them, because that could also happen, right? At the same time, we want to put minimum approvals. This is simple. In our case, it's one approval, but there is additional option to select. So if you have need work status, you cannot merge anyway. So if you have one approver declined, then you add another one. Another one will approve because he's your good colleague. You will not merge it anyway, right? So this is enforced on the global level, and we are encouraging people to provide more restrictions, let's say, but agreed on the team level and maintained by them.